from a water-cooled engine is the radiator. First, take off the hoses. Then take out the lower securing bolts and the securing bolts on the stay. Loosen the stay with 2 bolts on the water pump backplate. Then lift the stabilizing bar and remove the radiator. The fan blade assembly is secured by a left-hand thread nut. Slacken this off and remove. At this stage, also unbolt the radiator support bracket and remove the radiator stay. To remove the alternator, first slacken the bolts to untension the fan drive belt. Then unbolt the alternator and spacer. The last ancillary to come off is the starter motor. The first job in removing the cylinder head is to take off both the inlet and exhaust manifolds. On the inlet manifold, there are 2 bolts per cylinder. On the exhaust, 2 studs per cylinder. Make sure that all traces of the old gaskets are completely cleaned off. Slacken and remove the injector pipes. You can now extract the injectors using the special Lister-Petter socket provided for indirect injection engines. The individual cylinder head covers are attached with 2 nuts and a rubber sealing ring. Once they're off, remove the valve rockers and take out the push rods. It's important here to keep each set of nuts, rockers and rods together so that the same wearing parts mate together again when the engine is rebuilt. To disconnect the water pump, remove the 5 bolts from the pump assembly, then lift off, making sure there's no debris or seal remnants left. When you're disconnecting the lifting eye, make a note of its location. It differs in each model. Now the cylinder head can be taken off. Loosen the bolts in this order. Use a long socket to prevent any possible damage to the exhaust manifold studs. Because these bolts are torqued to yield point, they should be discarded and replaced for the rebuild. This is the indirect injection water-cooled head and cylinder. The direct injection water-cooled engines and the air-cooled models have different heads and pistons. Examine the head gasket. At the flywheel end, there's a tab with a 1, 2 or 3-hole identification code for reordering. The final step in this section is to lift out the pushrod tubes and gently remove the rubber seals and washers from the crankcase. Before the pistons are extracted, a number of components have first to be removed. First, the fuel pipes and rail. Next, unbolt the fuel lift pump. And the fuel filter. Unscrew the oil filter and take out the dipstick. Disconnect the oil pressure switch and adapter if fitted, and if there's a solenoid, take that off too. But make a note of the positions of the special fixing bolts. Next, to get access to the sump, the crankcase door has to be removed. Release the bolts in this particular sequence. Now you can get inside to unscrew the oil pressure relief valve. Then do the same with the oil strainer. Before the piston is actually extracted, remove any carbon that may have built up around the top of the bore. Rotate the piston to bottom dead center and take off the end cap. Then rotate the piston to top dead center and screw the special piston lifting tool into the conrod end. By levering the tool up, the piston is forced up and can be lifted out. Mark the conrod with the cylinder number so it goes back in the right location.